my children are out and about playing on the rail up there. Look at them enjoying themselves. That's the run, that one there, because the feathers on his back end haven't quite come through yet. There we are, there's all four of them on the rail. That's Dane in the corner there. Those are the other three behind. Oops. Now we aren't all getting on perfectly well here. Pettis has managed to get out of the cage, and that's Pettis that keeps flying around over there. Pettis is the father, and the babies are like ganging up on him and pestering him a little bit. They've all gone behind there now. They're pestering him, poor little... There! I don't quite understand whether they're playing or not. I think that the babies are playing, but Pettis probably doesn't find it very fun. Poor Bonnie is suffering again from gout, and she sort of just landed on the cage, and then perched on my finger for a little bit, and then wanted to go back inside. So she's back in the cage there. There she is. My thoughts on this are that it's a very good idea. Nobody can accuse the UFC of asset stripping the WEC in the same way that they did with Pride. In fact, I think they've handled WEC extremely well. At first it was sort of like the minor league to the UFC, which worked well, particularly for the little guys who seemed to do much better. They had parallels, obviously, between the WEC and the UFC in all the weight divisions, but the WEC went much lower. The UFC stops at £155. But the WEC had £145 and £135 as well. And in fact, those divisions were the most exciting because the little guys could move around a lot more. So the decision eventually was taken to basically axe everything above lightweight in the WEC, and that they all disappeared. WEC has only gone, I think, from strength to strength through that. Now it is a show completely made up of lightweights and below. I'm not sure it had such a good run when they tried the pay-per-view thing. I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but part of the problem with that was more about price and the amount now of products that are being produced by the UFC. Or Zuffer rather, which produces UFC and WEC. You can't expect people to buy every single thing because we've got events almost every week now. Sometimes there's 2 events a week. So I wouldn't take that as a direct reflection on WEC. There was always the thought from a lot of people that WEC was in some way lesser than the UFC. This was easy and obvious when you are talking about lightweights and above. But of course, because the featherweights and the bantamweights had no UFC alternative, they were sort of a premier, because that's the best you could do if you were of that weight. Now, someone you know that is my favourite fighter, Jens Pulver, has always been fighting for representation of these lower weighted individuals. In fact, he founded the lightweight division, and after his reign it was closed for many years before it reopened. That, I suppose, was his pioneering dream, really, of getting an 155-pound weight division in the UFC. I wonder how he feels now that the brands are changing and the featherweights and the bantamweights will move into the UFC unopposed. They won't need to fight any UFC people to get into the organisation. There will be no amalgamation of titles, because there is nobody at the UFC at those weight limits. So they simply just get enhanced by having the brand attached to them. I think it will dispel the myth that the WEC is second rate even there, that these lower fighters are second rate. There is no, top tier, so to speak. I think this hasn't been helped by the UFC shipping people to WEC that don't do so well in the UFC, and accepting people from the WEC that do really well there. That hasn't helped in the public perception of WEC being somehow lesser. So all in all, I think it's going to be a very good idea. The one thing I would say is that I hope this means that we will have the same amount of UFC at Zuffa events as if WEC was still going on its own. I think there's also three areas that are a little bit patchy. The first area is, what do you do with the 155-pound WEC people, because there is an 155-pound UFC division, and those two somehow have to merge. I fear that a lot of 155-pounders are going to disappear into the ether. I think the other thing you have to ask yourself, really, is yes, it's just come to me. Who the matchmaker for the WEC was, and who the matchmaker for the UFC lower levels will be, lower weight classes. Because the one thing that the WEC hasn't been, really, is politicised in any way, shape or form. There isn't really been fast tracking at all. And it's worked out all right. There have been some good and very dominant champions. The worry is that if it goes into UFC territory and it's run directly by the same people who matchmake in the UFC, we may start to see the sort of fast tracking we've seen in higher weight divisions in those low weight divisions as well, and that, I think, would spoil it. But all in all, I think it's a very, very good thing, and I look forward to seeing how that turns out.